Turning it over to Debbie.
Okay, so a few of us were hooked on Hakai, and we spent 20 nights out last summer in the wilderness area. And because you have to take the ferry so early in the morning and it gets back so late at night, the 18th and the 9th were our travel days next. So we are Alan, Jenny Sutton, John Makeley, Morley Eldridge, Lynn Byer, and me. So that was the 6 of us. And next, the 7th was our weather forecaster, Jenny's sister Mary, who every night dutifully sent us the predict wind in scrambled format so we could understand it and fit it into 150 characters and know what the weather was going to be like for the next 2 days. So that was great, so that we knew whether to go or to stay. Next. So tonight we'll be doing a talk in 5 parts. So I will get us up to Bella Bella. Jenny will take us around to here. Then John will take us through the Goose Group. Alan will take us into Calvert, and Lynn will bring us back up to Shearwater. So that's a bit of an overview, and you'll get more maps as we carry on. And Morley will jump in. He's our archaeologist.
Looks like I'm about to.
Yeah. And add color commentary as we go along. So next, for my part, I'll talk about getting up there. And we actually visited Bella Bella twice, but I'll talk about it all at once. So there I am in Shearwater looking for something to eat dinner. So again, we stayed at the North Coast Hostel in Port Hardy, which was a great place to stay. It accommodated us really well. Next. Again, we were amazed at how much Alan can fit in his boat, all his IKEA bags.
You think we should turn the lights off?
Turn the lights up or down?
If these ones back here could go down, that would be nice. They're in the back
That one?
back
Okay.
door.
Get them from back there.
Yeah, before the good stuff. Okay.
Oh, that's better.
Okay,
great.
That's much better.
Now you clearly see all the stuff.
Okay, yeah, good. Okay, so clicking on, click again. So in Port Hardy, the ferry is at Bear Cove, so it's about a 10-kilometer distance to the ferry. Took about a 15-minute trip, and because the hostel offered us free parking, we did the shuttle back and forth, so our car stayed back at the hostel in Port Hardy. Next. So here we are with the Northern Expedition that was built in Germany in 2009, so a pretty new ferry. And it travels every summer up to Prince Rupert between mid-June and mid-September. And we got on the first run of the season, which was quite interesting because the staff were like learning the ropes, and it was sort of like they were in slow motion. But you know, that we just had to go with the flow. So because the ferry leaves Port Hardy at 7:30 in the morning, check-in is at 6, which meant roll back 3:30 alarm to get us out of the hostel, get us to Bear Cove, unload, get the cars back, taxi back and forth. So that was a bit of a production. Next. So everyone needs to take wheels to get from the terminal onto the ferry. And luckily, Morley's colleague in Bella Bella was able to store our wheels for us. The ferry does have a 6 kayak rack, which you see in the next picture, but it had been booked out by a group. So there are all our boats, and we were a bit worried about them bumping up and down, so we were packing ice kayak bags under their bags of de-icer and stuff, but they didn't move at all, so we didn't bother on the way home. So there's our boats down bottom of the boat, and there's us preparing for our 5 hours on the trip where we could eat. Some folks had a bit of a nap, and we watched for whales as we traveled up the coast. Next. So some of the other amenities were the shop. The Raven Lounge was showing videos like over beautiful British Columbia to on away the time. And you could also rent a stateroom, which we didn't do. Next. Okay, next. So it was nice, the purser had these points of interest along the inside passage which we could follow along and the bridge would point out spots of interest along the way, so that was quite good. And sometimes they would catch the whales and sometimes they wouldn't, to announce them. So of course, just like down here, everybody would run to one side of the boat to look at the whales. Next. So this was our route on the Discovery Coast Passage from Port Hardy, sort of wiggled around, and over to McLaughlin Bay, which is just south of Bella Bella. And here we are in McLaughlin Bay, about 1 o'clock, with a nice audience watching us pack our boats on the beach. And there was another group that was going out, but this was the only time we really saw any other kayakers, was on our ferry days coming and going from the ferry. When we were out on the islands, we were pretty much on our own, the 6 of us. Next, so we had the 3 nautical miles up to Bella Bella to paddle, and so we were getting our selves going early afternoon. And the town of Bella Bella, or Waglisla, is home to about 1,400 Hiltzik and local folks. It's really a center for logging and fishing. What else did I want to say? We had various opinions about what to bring for water next. So some folks filled up here in Bella Bella. We don't recommend filling up, taking the precious water from the ferry. Folks had said, oh, the water in McLaughlin Bay is better than Bella Bella, blah, blah, blah. But really, the ones of us that brought water from home were really quite smug when Lynn and Morley were having to try and make coffee out of this really bad tasting water from Bella Bella. It tastes like the rubber hose, I think.
Tasted like the rubber hose.
Yeah, okay. So by this time, it's 2 or 3 in the afternoon, and I'll show you some pictures of when we came back to Bella Bella. So next we have the shops that there are to choose from. Grocery store is the white building in the back, and there's a bit of a souvenir shop right here. It's good to have local knowledge. We thought there might be a restaurant where we could have lunch, but there used to be, and not anymore, so we just had to cobble some things together from the grocery store. Next, I think I'm gonna just mention that there was that little souvenir shop, and they had coffee there, which was quite nice, and I'll hand it over to Morley to give us a little bit more of a background on the health.
Next, I think this is pretty quick. There's a cultural education center that's inside the school, part of the school. And they have basically it's like a little museum there, and they have a number of displays both throughout sort of the concourse and within their small museum. Next. Not sure, this is, I guess this is just one of the displays from, I can't remember if this is a particular potlatch or a government associated thing. I think this is someone's potlatch, and a number of chiefs drumming on a double canoe platform, and the big seiners that some people own in behind with. You can see chiefs in their regalia on the seiners as well. And this is one of the photographs that's on display. Next. And this was the caretaker. I can't recall his name.
Leo, I think. Leo?
Leo? Yeah, who's went and found out we were there to see the museum, and he went and got this
Copper.
replica copper, but he made it out of some type of rock, I think, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
He polished it out of a chunk of rock. So yeah, he was quite proud of that. And next. And then we were inside, and we got a presentation by Jennifer Carpenter, who's one of the long-term Carpenter families up there. She's an anthropologist and leads the Cultural Education Center, and was telling us about a couple of their programs. Next.
John's the only one well-dressed in that.
That's true, yeah, okay.
He couldn't get it off.
And then we were back at local knowledge. If you ever go down, you have to be really careful on that dock. It's like ice on that slime at that end of the dock that never gets used.
Okay, Jenny's
I
next.
think we're to Jenny.
Yeah.
There she is.
Yeah.
Oh,
The least flattering picture I've ever seen of myself. There we go.
we were gonna say.
So, just before I get into the top, you see how I'm dressed there? The two most important bits of my equipment was an umbrella, foldable gumboots, which fit into, when they're folded up, they fit into that, flat, okay. Hat, got the hat on. And then on certain days, this came in very handy, bug net. But you have to remember to lift it when you're eating. Yeah, so, bitey bugs, not just annoying bugs, but bitey bugs. Okay. Anyway, so I'm going to cover, if you can go on to the next one. So I'm going to cover, we don't have a pointer.
Yeah, yes, we do. So here.
Okay, so Deb talked about from McLaughlin Bay up to Bella Bella, and then I'm going to cover where we first camped up here, and then into Gale Passage. You know that boat recently that?
Oh, the one
Yeah,
that's
that
with the
sunk
oil
there,
slick.
the oil slick that went down part of Gale Passage. We were going to go all the way to McLaughlin, but we ended up McMullen. We ended up here in Gale Passage at a very nice campsite. And then I will take us all back to the McMullen group, and then as far as the goose, and then Morley will do his bit after that, and then this is some really fun stuff. And then over to John. Okay, so next. So Bella Bella to Post Point is 10. None of our days were long. They were all around 10, 8 to 10.
Last one.
It's just you have to be aware that we were.
You forget.
It was exposed.
Day 20,
Well, okay, all of mine.
day 19.
All of mine. Okay. So, can you want the next one? So what happened? We left. No wait. Okay. We left here, and my first shots are nice and calm here. But I could see from the clouds we were going to hit northwest wind coming down the Seaforth Channel, and sure enough, next. Okay, calm, calm, calm. But these clouds up here are moving. Okay, next. Bio break. We have lots of pictures of Alan for this, leaning against his spare gear, and he has got the mothership. But he does carry the group tarp, so I have to be nice to him. Next, please. So, can you just, yeah, okay. So what happened when we came around and it was windy and choppy, we had a headwind, and there was white caps, and we had loaded boats. We'd been up since 3 in the morning, put that scenario together, trying to find a campsite. And end up, the BC Marine Trails ones were pretty small, and also what we hadn't put in the mix was high tides. So guess what happens? Not much beach. So we ended up looking at a couple of places, and then we ended up, the wind dropped later in the day, and we did get across to a reasonable spot. And then the next day, so that was our start. It was a late finish. The bugs were out. I'm like, what am I doing here? And so the next day, 10 nautical miles again, foggy morning, but flat calm. And we changed, this was, we changed our minds not to push to the Mullins. So if you go to the next one. So there we are, dead calm. Nice shot, whoever took that one.
Yeah.
And, you know, this is what it's all about for me. A day like that, with the scenery. And look,
With a pineapple.
did you know what's on top there? That is a fresh pineapple.
And an owl.
Yeah, well, is the owl there too?
Yeah.
Okay. Next. Lunch break, I mean, you wouldn't believe we had quite a lot of rain. Looking at that. Okay, next. And then when you headed down Gale Passage, there were some really neat islets, and I think there was a bit of First Nation stuff there too. And you had to time the current going in the right way. We were actually going, I clocked 6 knots on my GPS. And it was fun because there was, you know, there was water, and it was kind of fun to roll the boat. And so we carried on through here, and then we hung a left. Instead of going on south, we hung a left next. And stopped in, and this was in Gale Passage, and it overcast, started raining, and thank heavens for group tarp. It's really great physically because you can be under the one spot for eating, which is nice socially, and just, but yeah, it's just, you're dry, and it's big. And Alan carries that, which is really nice. Okay, but the group decision we made after our first trip was that we would, if any damage happened to that tent, to tarp, the group would pay for it. Okay, on to the next one. Okay, so then, because of the wind, oh, hi, Ron. Whew, Ron's here. Because of the wind, Ron's the fellow that cycled from Beijing to Istanbul. This is nothing. So anyway, we decided to stay inside Gale Passage because there was pretty ripping southwest winds out where we were going to head. So we just diddle-fiddled around in the early mornings, but it was very low tide. So we explored the fish traps and clam beds so that more will go into more. And we noodled for 8.5 miles. And it was drizzly, overcast, calm, and we had a great day. On next one. So there's the outfit. Deb with boots, foldable boots, umbrella, hat, and that's Alan down there. So this is one of these clam bedding things, you know, where that's obviously built by man. It's not nature. Next one. And that's one in a small stream we saw. Again, that's man-made, and Maury will explain more. That's for catching fish. You know you're on the west coast when you have this kind of moss. Okay, next one. So what, I just put this in because you know, most of you that know me, you know, I've got to do some teaching when I'm doing these things. So what to consider when you're doing these kind of trips? Wind strength and direction, both the daily and long range forecast. Tide height, we got caught a bit, really high tides, so not many beaches. The other thing, after winter, those BC Marine Trail descriptions of the campsites, we went to 2 where there was so much log debris or salal growing up that you could not have got the number of tents in that they have written on their website. So you have to be a little bit careful. So I got a shot with it later about the log debris after winter storms. Landing options, you really got to check that for bio breaks, emergencies. And be prepared. Early starts, if there's a wind forecast or the water height and currents and bugs. So we had on, you know, pants with our socks on the outside of our pants, gum boots helped, long sleeves, just, you know, cover up, because they could drill through almost anything. Next. You know, nature. Next, that's just bunchberries. Lynn, desserts extraordinaire, appetizers extraordinaire. Next. And so then the weather forecast was good, another 10 miles. Again, we checked all these Cree Point and Island 48 problematic for being able to camp there in spite of the BC Marine Trail site. Calm crossing. Next one. So that's the kind of stuff we see. Next. And there's the McMullen group, Paradise. See how orange really shows up? That's really, orange is a great color for tarps. Next. And that's our view. Okay. Next. And we had the McMullen group choir, which you, if you came to our talk last year, you would have heard them singing every night, 2 or 3 songs.
You're not in it, Jenny.
No.
She's leading it.
She's the audience. She's the audience.
No, she wasn't.
After I took that, I actually walked away. I was going to put a video clip in, but it really wasn't. That's all I'll say. They were enthusiastic. Lynn would just go to bed, and I would go for a walk down the beach. Anyway, next. So it's some of the intertidal, the giant green anemone. Next. And that. And then next, this is a fun one. So you get carried away and you forget about the tide coming in. So we wandered over here and there was no way back except to cross. Next. And then we did it was only about a 4.5 mile paddle, but there was a lot of rocky islets, but there was this wonderful sandy beach, which of course disappears at high tide. Next. So then the weather was good. We then headed on to the Goose group. And you know, some people never get to the Goose group because of wind. So we were very fortunate with what we were able to do. Again, that magic number again. We headed out thinking, well, there is some wind. We'll get out to the furthest islets and check. And it wasn't that long a crossing. It was about an hour, I think, to get across. So it was only blowing 5 to 8. The swells were 1 to 2, sort of coming onto our right front side. But it was like washing machine. It was that kind of lumpy, bumpy. You really had to focus, and it took some energy. We decided as a group that we had the skill level to handle the crossing. Now, what happened that day is that we loaded the boats, and because of, well, I can't remember why, we didn't launch until 12:30 because we went exploring in the bush for culturally modified trees and had a good morning. So we were late on the water. We did get across, and we were crayons in the box. You know what that means? We were side by side, and we were within shouting distance of each other the whole way across that rougher crossing. A bit hard to do when there's 20 paddlers, but for 6 it's easy. So the shoreline along Goose Island from the north end down to that on the east side is pretty rocky. There was just one spot where we could get out for a bit of a bio break. And then there's the decision about where to camp. I think that might be me. Yeah. So the decision about where to camp, Alan had been, well, Deb had been there before, and Alan had been there. I remembered camping on the west side of this isthmus where there's a beach on this side and a beach on that side. Well, guess where the wind was coming from? Southwest. So some of us said, well, why don't we just camp over the other side where there's still a nice beach and nice view? And we're out of the wind, so there was this. And finally, the majority said, let's camp on the protected side. So again, we always had this consensus group decision and yeah, it worked really well. So that's it for me, I think, and it's over to
John?
John.
No, Morley's
Oh,
talking
oh,
about
okay.
all his. Do you want the? It is. Just push the red button.
Next, yeah. So what I found in Gale Pass, which was fairly what we call a cultural landscape, there was archaeological remains really over a whole lot of the area, not even looking at shell middens and what have you. And some of these things are previously recorded, but there was a whole lot more that had not been recorded. So this is the area we came down in. This is where the tide was running about 6 knots flooding in. When we got down here, we actually were going against the tide coming through here and we were just barely able to paddle against it and get through there. It was running pretty close to 4 knots, I think, in spots. And there was one spot where the water was just boiling, which was going over, I thought at the time, a fish trap, because I knew there was fish traps in here. However, these red lines here are all the different fish traps that I went out and GPS'd in the next day. And you can see a long wall of rocks here running across this channel. Next. And just zooming in here, some of these long looping walls that were just a bit north of our campsite. And I don't know if you can see them in the back. I should have made the red lines heavier. They looked heavier originally. But there's these red lines here, and then you can actually see some of these in the
That one.
in the satellite photography. So that's kind of neat. And next.
Morley, are any of those used today?
No. No. And this was the little islet we were camping on. And then you can see a lot of these ones were quite buried in sediment, and I think over time they've the sediment's built up and started to cover them. And there's probably a lot more there. There's actually another couple that I missed there, but I'm not sure you're going to see given the qualities of the thing. But there's another little loopy wall in here you can see on the image that you couldn't originally. I think there's another wall probably up here, which I couldn't see on the ground, but some of these things you can see better from the air. Next.
They're not being tended, do they catch fish?
No.
No?
No, they all have openings in them, and they're pretty low now. Probably when they were used, they were probably 2, 3, 4 feet high.
Oh.
But the sediments come in, and some of them may not be fish traps. Some of them could be clam garden walls, but I don't think a lot of them in here are. Some of the longshore ones maybe, but a lot of these were in areas where it's sedimenting up both sides. You don't really need they were in flat areas where you don't really need a clam garden wall. And a lot of them combined natural bedrock outcrops like you see here with a built wall on the other side. Next. And as I continued walking up and around, I got to that place where we had so much trouble paddling through the day before. Found that what our wall there was in fact just this vertical ridge of bedrock that jutted straight up. And all in through here was just one of the most dense areas of intertidal life I've ever seen. It was just jammed with huge big California mussels, thatch barnacles, and lots and lots of chitons in there. And I think that's the end. Last slide. Oh no, I'm doing some CMPs. There I'm pointing out cut marks on a very ancient cedar tree that had a big slab of bark taken off, probably for use for roofing. And another one. And here's one that's probably not quite as old with a chop mark here and another one here. And they took the bark off in that square there. And there might be this odd video which nobody could figure out how to turn it around in time.
You have to lie down.
Yeah, you're going to have to be recumbent for this bit.
But John was quite enthusiastic, so this was a video that John took.
This is a large rectangular bark strip. There's a bottom cut here, which you can see on this side where the bark's gone. You can't really see it, but it's in here. The top cut, you can see the remaining bark very clearly here, and the cut line coming around. By the time you get here, there's two lines. There's a line there and a line there, and it's very clear here. There's a line there and a line there with the chisel
10 centimeters apart.
driven in two lines, so a piece of bark in the middle was taken out. Higher up the bark also goes across horizontally, but that's a natural just breaking away. It tends to break flat like that. So there's, well, actually the line continues on that same line all the way over. I think they might have taken a second piece up above. So they probably climbed up there to cut that as well.
I've spent a lot of my life clambering around in the old growth forest, so this was sort of going back to some of my younger days, and really enjoyed getting around in there.
And how long ago would that be, Maureen?
That I was young enough to.
10 years ago.
10 years ago.
Those ones are probably anywhere between 100 to 120 to maybe 200 years old,
All for roofing, likely?
or 250 years. Mm-hmm. Pardon?
Likely for roofing?
Mostly for roofing, yeah. Mostly people are getting them for shelters because you know, they were the tarps of their age,
Right,
basically.
right.
Yeah. John?
When Morley says he sort of goes into the forest too, he's not just kidding around. And it's a forest that goes over your head and under it. He just goes, you know, in a straight line. You lose sight of him. Oh, he's up there now. You know.
And we have our junior archaeologist,
Junior.
Junior.
So, oh yeah,
Yeah, pointer.
Other way around.
Don't blind yourself.
all right.
That's you in the water.
Where's the cat?
It's got a beard. The red button,
Oh, I have to push it.
yes. And hold it.
There. All right, this is an interesting shot. There's a lot you can learn from this shot. Jim, I didn't take it. No, the question was, the drama in the shot is, did I manage to wash my feet and get both boots back on before I tipped into the water? Now, it's been a product placement here. It's extra tough boot. You know, Alan's got them on. One of the best pieces of gear I took on the trip. You know, high top rubber boots, just essential piece of gear. It's not really a product placement. Usually when there's product placement, they would have a young guy in a fishing boat in a storm, not an old guy washing his feet in a bay.
The rubber bands, John.
The rubber bands, I should explain it. So this is these ankle strap here. It's not just decorative. It's actually an elastic. It's actually an elastic, which meant that you could roll up the tie tops around the sole and then secure it with that elastic. It would make a very small package where you could store in your boat. So those are elastics. Very, very phony. So now, could we just have the lights for a minute at the back? Good night, because I just want to, you're already aware of my experience with these technologies. So what I did, this is a new concept. This kind of paper chart. So, no, so can you see that? Can you all see that? So if I go back a bit, how's that? So what we did is we came down the east side of Goose, and we camped here at this little island called Snipe, just between Gosling and Gulf Island here. And so just to give you an overview of what we did here, we camped there. We got there late at night. Had a long day. So the next day we were all tired. It was wet and stuff. So we didn't do anything. We just camped and went for walks and tried to dry things. Then the next day we went around Goose. So we went up and around Goose. And then the following day, we wanted to explore this lagoon. So we got up very early, went up to this lagoon, and then scooted out, four of us scooted out here and went down these two islands on the outside. I've got pictures of all this. And then we went around Gosling into this bay and then back to our campsite at Snipe. So that's what we did while we were there on Goose. Now, but I wanted to mention this, you see all the dark green here? This kind of basin area around these islands. Like low tide, it dries out. Like the passages become dry. Well, you'll see that in some of the pictures. Okay, next. Oh, so there's a couple of Snipe Island vistas. Next. There's another one. Okay, next. So this is the passage between Snipe and Gosling. It completely dries out. And just note the rain gear. You know, Jenny's got, as she said, she's got the umbrella, the rain hat over rain gear. You know, Lynn with a heavy poncho as well. Next. So that day we tried to dry things out. So different approaches to laundry. Deb trying to draw some laundry under her fly. Next. And there was the rock method. Every once in a while the sun would poke its head out, kind of, come on, put your laundry out. Really, it won't rain later. So there was that approach. Next. And Morley built a kind of a drying tarp. Built a little fire underneath it. And you kind of, the highlight here is the suspenders here. Which he's standing there, he's more proud of these suspenders than he is of his tarp here.
And it was cached in the bush junk tarp too. So.
Yeah. Next. So that was the other part of this. There's all these sticks around the fire, with all the underwear and socks on them. Now you can kind of see the smoke there. And the nice thing about drying this way is that you get to carry that smoke into your tent for the next 3 or 4 days.
Never mind tights.
Okay, it wasn't all work that day. They're blowing bubbles.
That's Alan's hand. Next.
Next. Now this is out of order, so keep going. Next. And one more. We'll come back to these.
Here.
So now the next day we went around, as I mentioned, we ran around Goose Island. So we had to get an early start. 2 reasons. One, it's about 15, 16 nautical miles around, and so we wanted to leave ourselves enough time. And then the second reason was that there was supposed to be a strong northwest winds forecast, and we wanted to get in the afternoon, and we wanted to get up to the top of Goose before those winds came. And so it meant that we left, and that area hadn't cleared out yet. Like, it was still dry. So we had to, walk the kayaks through parts of the passage so that we could get out to begin our journey around Goose. Next. So this is a shot on the east side of Goose. Lots of rocky kind of area like this, although as you get farther up towards the top, there's some nice little beaches. Next. So this is now we're at the top of Goose. A little Helsick rediscovery camp. Next. So we stopped at the top for lunch, and we're always alert to possibilities to get water. Alan noticed this kind of dribble of water going across the sand, and went off to explore to see if we could collect some water, and did, I think, Alan, collect some water, but later dumped it because we found some better water. Next. Oh, this is, yeah, I agree, this is so cute. I found this little whale. I'm gonna pass it around. Now, some people picked it up and they saw other shapes in it. It's a small whale. I can tell you, I can tell you how I know that. When I picked this whale up off the beach, right away I had the thought that this whale, this piece of wood, came from like at the north end of the gooseberry. There's these tall trees. And this piece of wood came from one of those tall trees. And those trees, they look out towards the McMullen Group, and they've watched the whales go up and down the coast for hundreds of years. And one of those trees had done that and died. It was carried out to sea in the wind and the waves and things, ended up fashioning this small whale, which I'm now passing around. And all of this, it's like one of those, it's like a bit of one of those magic things in a Harry Potter story. When you hold it, it'll take you right back here, right across all the time and space. It's really incredible.
Did you name the whale?
No, I have no name for it. It's a no-name whale. Next. Okay, so go back a couple, Alan. Can you go back?
Back to those other ones?
Yeah, go back to here. So when we finished around going around Goose, we ran into a couple of other. We ran into Edgar Hewlett, a Siska member,
And Fiona.
who was sailing with some friends, and so he brought over some beer and water, which was gratefully received.
Nice.
Yeah, he's
Cold
admiring
Beer,
admiring
fresh
his
beer.
beer. It's just-
Cold beer. Oh, I see the beer now. There.
Next. So now this shot
That's
is
pretty.
very early in the morning, because I mentioned that we wanted to explore the lagoon. The trick was, we didn't want to get caught with the lagoon emptying out, because it just turns into mud. High tide in the lagoon was around 6 o'clock in the morning. And so to explore the lagoon meant that we had to that we were on the water at 6:30. Next. Oh, keep going till we get to. So yeah, so go back. Okay, so we went into the lagoon. It was really boring because we thought there would be rich in birds and things, but it wasn't. It was the wrong time of year. Now there are some birds that go there, black oyster catchers and marbled murrelets, I understand, are seen to frequent there, but we didn't see any of those. Now, we did see though, well, we've got a shot coming up. The next day we did see a bird that's rare for the area. You know, apparently Alan's got some theories about this, but apparently the small wildlife population goes up and down, and sometimes you get birds of prey like owls and eagles that come over in greater numbers. So now this shot is a shot of us going down the east side of those islets. And our thought was we would be able to get in and go down close into shore and have a good look at that shoreline. But we really didn't see the shoreline. It was all 1.5, 2 meter swells. We were so far offshore we could hardly see the islands. So when we came around, if you do get up there, when we came around the bottom of those little islets here, we came around. That was a bit of a challenge because there's all these boomers. Like we thought we were going to have to paddle a long ways, but so Alan found a path through these boomers, so we were able to shoot through and made it back to our campsite. So next. Now this shot, we're leaving now, and this is you do see some odd out of place birds from time to time. This was one of them.
Is that an owl?
That's an owl.
Ah,
Yeah, you wouldn't expect
Put
to
your
see.
pointer on it.
and the dinosaur.
Yeah, can you?
Oh, the dinosaur, yeah.
there, you see it?
And then the dinosaur over to the right.
You wouldn't expect to see an owl there, but there it was.
And the crows weren't happy.
No, no. We ran into a similar owl, Alan can tell you about it, on the St. Joseph Bay, and it was the same kind of situation.
Same canal.
Yeah, and so, next.
Cheap like orange.
So our passage then from across was the Queen's Channel. I'm not sure if it was due to Morley's exhortations to the water or not, but it was a dead calm crossing. And there we go, we're leaving the Goose Group and my job is done.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Do you want somebody to punch?
So I need to, an advance.
So where do we advance?
Okay. So we talked about the camp cookery lesson coming up, but some of us have perfected breakfast already. I want to point out that these containers all used to contain Skippy peanut butter. And they're terribly useful, Skippy peanut butter containers. So it has coffee and Gatorade and pretty much everything you need to get going in the morning is lined up right there. That's my breakfast. Okay. So we're going to go from Snipe Island here, down bottom, I guess, across, I think it's Queen Sound or something, and then we're going to come all the way down past Hurricane Island, camp at Trickett, and then make our way down here to North Calvert. That's the route for this one, and you'll see that we were able to travel quite easily. We went straight on Queen Sound thinking we'd try and get across before maybe the wind came up, but then the wind didn't come up, so we thought, well, let's just take advantage of this situation and kind of bent our course down, and we're really out in a lot of water for quite a while, but it was fine because the conditions are so good. Okay, so this is what it looked like. You couldn't ask for better. And we had waited out some bad weather that had occurred outside, so I think this was, again, Mary's advice was invaluable. Daily sort of gave us 2 days, I think, right, Mary? At a time, kind of what we could expect from the weather, so we knew sort of how to plan the trip. We get across, and this is arriving at the north end of Hurricane Island, I think, and just coming in. And it started to look a little bit more. And then we arrived at just a gorgeous campsite on Trickett. There's 2 fairly big campsites there. There's one on the northwest end and northeast, and this is the northeast one, which is a little bit larger. And I think that must be your note, Morley, because...
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I gathered one of the oldest sites here in BC. But just a wonderful place to camp, and if you kind of go back behind those trees, you're looking out south over, the next big patch of water and some gorgeous territory. Okay. Oh, I'm turning over to you, I guess.
Oh, just for a sec. Yeah, I just this was just some of the things that were found right behind our campsite by Duncan McLaren, who some of you may know from talks at UVic and that kind of thing. There was a wooden ball here, which was found in peat deposits. It's about it was almost 6,000 years old, and just a number of stone tools and different wooden artifacts and things going all the way down to well over 11,000 years old at the bottom. So pretty neat that we actually found their excavation units. I was poking around behind, not knowing that that's where they'd actually excavated. And it's like, oh, what's this little trail going in the bush? And like, it's a dead end. And then like, wait a minute, that's an old excavation unit that someone's refilled and tried to camouflage, so, yeah.
Morley?
Yeah.
Under datum, it's got 0 and then looks like descending numbers.
Those are depth below surface.
Right, but
Yeah.
what, are they centimeters or?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, so 2.5 meters deep to the bottom.
To 11,000 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, so this is that southeast view from Trickett. We're looking down, and
Clouds.
clouds are pretty amazing. Huh?
Oh, no kidding.
Just parading by. Something going on, but at altitude wasn't affecting us.
Yeah.
This is the sunset that night, And I stayed up and took way too many shots of it because it was lovely. Okay. And in the morning. So it's just a gorgeous place to be. I could spend more time in the trip, for sure. And morally examining, so this is the next day, right?
Yep.
And we went out and around Hurricane Island. This is at the south end.
Yep.
And these are, well, say something.
Well, this is a collapsed house from a sort of a semi-traditional style house from probably built in the early 20th century, something like that. But it's on top of a very old site that has several meters deep midden. There's one standing house post at the side there that's still standing up, and the rest is kind of planks and boards that have collapsed downwards. Yeah, next.
Okay.
And just looking at some shell midden on the shoreline, which is being eroded and going down. It actually looks like the midden continues down below high tide level now, so suggests the sea level's actually risen a bit. And this is an area that's supposed to have been quite stable, so that's interest to some of us.
Okay.
Oh, and this is the next part coming out.
This is cool.
Lynn spotted this.
You're good.
And you can see we're in here, and where's the painter? And I think I'm cut off there, taking pictures. And Lynn's eagle eye saw something here. Next slide. This is zoomed in a bit, and you might see a circle right there. And then with our D-stretch satellite stuff, this is what that can look like once you use the software to enhance it. So
I wonder what that was.
yeah, and just another setting of that. So it's pretty neat. It goes from an almost invisible to like, oh, there's actually a whole bunch of things going on there. A face with eyebrows and a mouth, and some other things couldn't really figure it out. And there was a hole in the that's a hole, and they painted the streak coming down from it. So I suspect it's something about the spirit coming out of the rock and down there, or something like that. If you back up a couple to the original.
How do I go back?
Other back up.
Oh, here we are. Nope.
No.
How do I go back?
Yeah, that
You
was
were-
going back.
you were going back.
Yeah.
There we go. There, so you can see it in the sort of natural light, how it's a natural hole in the rock there.
Wow.
How did she respond to that?
We were looking hard.
You were looking
I
at-
found another 3,000 that weren't actually anything at all. But, no, the ochre's just a slightly different color from the lichens that grow on the wall. You just look for something that's different.
And circles, right? Marley, you're looking for.
Well, yeah, if you can see
Circulation.
something that's definitive, like, oh, wait a minute, there's something there.
And a lot of
I-
these haven't been documented, so we're
No,
hoping that,
that was a new one, yeah.
yeah, so Lynn's name might be able to go on it.
Yeah, I'm famous. Autographs later.
Okay, so now we're paddling from Tricket on our way to Calvert. As I recall, it was a little bit lumpy. And we were sort of hoping it wasn't going to stay all that lumpy because we had some fairly big crossings that we needed to cross Hakai Passage further down. But just at the bottom of this next group of islands, it seemed to be particularly bouncy, and there were some people fishing there, as I recall. What do we have next? Yeah, so as it turned out, not a worry, we managed to get across Hakai, and now we're on the north shore of Calvert, making our way kind of west to the beach we want to get to. And I hadn't remembered this from the previous time I was there, but there's a fishing club operation there called the Hakai Fishing Club. They've been there for a couple of decades,
30s,
I think.
1930s, I
I
think.
think they're a long time. So they turned out to be kind of helpful. And these two guys, they were not quite open. They were doing some work there, very friendly, showed us around. They're doing some great woodwork, and said, let us know if you need any help. So now we're on, go ahead. Now we're on the beach at Calvert. You can see it's just a wonderful West Coast typical beach. We're facing north actually here, North Beach. And we're getting into some serious eating after all that paddling. So this is a meal I'm involved with, and if you're involved with the meal, well, you gotta serve people, and You know, half of them have chairs, look like they don't want to go anywhere, so you take the food to them.
That's a hatch cover.
That's a hatch cover I'm serving from, yes, multi-purpose.
Creative,
hatch cover.
creative.
Is that yours?
No.
Jenny's,
Jenny.
mine,
GTS,
yeah.
Oh,
GTS
yeah.
hatch cover.
GTS, also known as a.
Multifunction.
Tray.
Okay. And, oh yeah, so I'm not known for my cookery, but I have very talented friends. And so I tried to step up a little bit here. And so one of the ways of stepping up was to try to make a cream pie. And it turns out that that was rather successful, at least I think it was. So part of the fun was you have to agitate the what becomes the cream pie. And to do that over a period of time, you know, you need a little incentive. So we were
And
probably-
Skippy peanut butter.
yeah, and the Skippy peanut butter jar, again, very useful, as we're kind of agitating away to Jamaica farewell.
With your clothes pegs
Yeah, that's right.
inside.
That's right. The clothes pegs, they were sterilized clothes pegs, but they were plastic clothes pegs, and that gave a little bit more agitating action in there. And anyway, it came out really well, as you'll see. Go ahead, Jen. There it is. You can see it right there. So lemon cream pie in the wilderness. What's not to like? The next day was Canada Day, and we had come prepared. It turned out other people in that area were not as prepared as we were. We were flummoxed by that, so we got all booted up, as you see, with transfers and flags and bread, this and that. Okay, and then these two are researchers from the Hokai Institute, which is not far away. They were there doing their work, so we gifted them with a couple of flags. And Morley was finding out what research they're doing, and kind of got them into it. And then we did a kind of a fairly quick, easy hike from where we were over to the West Beach. I guess I could point that out. This is the North Beach where we are. You kind of cut through a trail here. You're on West Beach, and then there's another relatively short trail here to the Hokai Institute, which is here. The Hokai Institute used to be a resort, which was purchased by a wealthy benefactor who now funds this research into Central Coast things. Everything, I think, in the Central Coast has got a home for research right there, so it's a pretty cool place. Anyway, we went over and looked around, and it was raining, of course. We looked a little bedraggled, true, but we were happy. And coming down some sections was kind of fun. There's a series of 7 or 9 beaches, I can't remember. We made it through about 5 or 6 of them anyway. And there's always like headlands and then down to the next beach and around. This is the Hokai Institute. Beautiful modern building. I'm not sure, do I have a picture inside maybe? Next. No. No. Okay, inside is very well appointed, and but they didn't, there wasn't much going on. They were just doing their thing. This was what was happening outside. It was pretty exciting. This is on now the west side of North Calgary. And it was a good day not to be out there. You know, I mean, we were like, oh yeah, this is the sort of weather, you stay on the beach, we're in the right place, and it was tremendous to watch, very energetic. And then we had a really wonderful surprise. We took this lookout trail, which I'd not done when we were here before, and you think, oh, it's a lookout, get up, lookout, big deal. But in fact, you went into a whole other ecosystem. And the top of this island is all kind of dwarfed, and just quite different than just a few, maybe 100 meters below. So a bog, yeah, a whole environment looks like this. Okay, the next one, Jay. So, and the top, it was really windy. I mean, really windy, and small people, you know, like this, who doesn't weigh much. You know, it's getting buffeted around like this, but never mind. She's going to get that photo, and she did. Next one is what she took a shot of coming back, and it has this little kind of pond up there. I guess rainwater collects, and they've got trail has been built up.
And there were whitecaps on that pond.
I know.
It was so windy.
Crazy windy, but it was beautiful.
There was water lilies, there was bog orchids. Yeah, it was very cool, and it's over quite a lot of covered islands, supposedly. If you fly over, supposedly there's a lot of it. So it's very surprising.
This day was, because we went up a second time, right? But this day we couldn't see very far. I think the next day we could see further south.
you can see the white along the shoreline, it just.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, excellent. So this is what the coastline looks like there along the northwest. Pretty rugged. Jenny was sitting down on the job here. So it's very slippery when it gets like that, right? And it was just a good place to drop because it was very cushiony, apparently. And then the sun comes out, you know, like it does on these days, and so it's time to dry stuff again. John was pointing out some of the earlier strategies, and there have been some tests now, and we're into new strategies. This is quite an intense sun. And so Debbie called these, you know, she's the word meister. These are now socky sticks, right? Socks all over the beach, and different sort of creations to dry things out, because it's just drying everywhere. So Jenny was like a walking drying rack. That seemed to work well too. We're getting dried out. And then Morley built this solar shower. You want to say something about that?
Just a shower and rigged up a big, I think it was a 20-liter bag or something with a shower head on it, and heated rocks up with a fire and used those to heat the water, and
This is the Aboriginal.
These are his tongs and his
The
hand.
shower isn't,
These are his
but the tongs and the water heating method was, yeah.
All right, now I'm over to Lynn.
I'm up,
You're up.
Good.
okay.
You do more.
Okay, so I've got it from here on in. So our first day, we're going from leaving our little beach on Calvert and go out and around. And we had some big seas, but they weren't that threatening. They were maybe 3-meter seas, but they weren't capping. So we still thought we'd better take the safe route. So we tucked in here and we met the wind again right about here, but we were paddling into it, so it wasn't that bad. And we made our way to the most wonderful Serpent Island.
Remember that?
And so we came in from this angle, and you can't see it. Alan knew it was there, so it was wonderful. But so we came in, and we're just greeted with this beautiful, beautiful white sand beach.
And it was water over it before, when we got in.
Yeah, we were able to paddle in.
Yeah. Yeah. Next. And there's a little pool as you're walking through, and with all kinds of wonderful intertidal. And on the other side, on the wild side, we have a surge channel, and again, lots more intertidal. Next, Jenny, thanks. And we had our own private little campground.
That's nice.
And we were just so tucked in, and it was just beautiful. The only thing was there was a little bit of a lack of wood for building fires. These are all Jenny's pictures. She has an eye for finding the flowers. They were all up on the hillside and behind where we were camped. When we left, we had a lower tide. So this is what the shoreline looked like for us to launch our boats. So we made a canoe run. So we moved a whole lot of rocks, and this is obviously John and Morley carrying the boats through. And we went through to the other side to launch our boats. It worked quite well. We were quite proud of ourselves. And so we reluctantly left the Serpent group, but time was running out. So we went from the Serpent, and we were really quite tucked in, and it was just a pleasant paddle back through some of the areas that we'd already been through. And you could see we leave the Serpent group and go out and around. Potential for trouble here, but there was nothing going on. And we went around and into Cultus Sound, where Morley did some fishing, and he likes to do things the old way. So he's got them hooked on some old cedar boughs, and they were quite tasty. And do you have something do you want to?
Oh, yeah, it was just a tree that was on a trail on the way back there. I'll just use the pointer.
Sure.
In between beaches, and there was this old tree, and it was snapped. But what was interesting about it was it had been used for kindling collection in the past, and but it wasn't done with an axe or anything like that. It was done with probably a stone hammer like this, and wooden wedges like this, or possibly an antler wedge. And you can see there's a line left by the wedge there, and another one there, and people were hammering the wedge into the wood wherever they could get it into a little crack, and then taking out big splinters of wood and snapping them off, and it was all sort of haggly at the top. So just kind of neat thing to find.
And Morley and I, we had half as many bear barrels as the others, so we hung our food a few times, and Morley rigged up a great pulley system. It was a five times mechanical system, so it was just, you could pull up many pounds of food without any weight at all. And the reason that it was good to have all the food taken care of was, we went through the other side and found we had company, black bear. So we did not see the black bear, unfortunately, but definitely saw lots of prints. The intertidal in Cultus, the little cove where we were, was astounding. The nicest I think I've ever seen. There was a wall there that just had everything, abalone and Jenny could name them all off for you, but just an astounding amount of intertidal there. So we enjoyed that. We had a real poke around one morning, and then we carried on around the McNaughtons, which was just a fabulous day on the water too. This is where all the intertidal is. It's a great wall there. And then we went all the way around, and this is the sort of the scenery that we got to deal with. We felt you had that big open ocean feel, but it wasn't threatening at all. And then there were glassy calm little coves, and this is another area that Morley might want to have a quick word about. This is a very interesting fish trap.
Yeah, it's the entire little cove here is being modified by people, actually. There's a little channel that the creek, when it's running, goes in, and it's a manufactured rock-placed channel. It's all kind of engineered, and then there's these little pond areas behind where the rock's all piled around it. It's hard to get good photos of these things. And then down by where the boats are, there's a whole series of concentric curving rock walls down there, and I think our boats are actually on top of one of them. Next. And there's another picture showing the little creek, and yeah, some of these things, and some stone tools that I was finding in there. And I think that's it. So the whole cove looks natural, but if you know what you're looking at, you realize the entire thing's been engineered by people.
So that little stone tool, it was just among the rocks?
Yeah, it was just amongst the rocks. There were several of them in there. But,
so you were saying people would use them and then they just leave them there?
Yeah.
Because they use them in the same
They're an
place?
expedient, what we call an expedient tool. You kind of use it and then...
Plenty more where that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so.
And Morley would carefully put them back where he found them.
Same place, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So we go back to the beach, and more stuff comes out of Alan's top. Fun, we blow bubbles again. And then a family came for a picnic on the beach, and the kids really enjoyed that beach ball.
That water was freezing.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, they're made of better stuff than I am. There were little whitey things in the water too, which I didn't enjoy. So we decided to stay 2 days there, which left us no choice but to do 19 miles all the way back from Cultus Sound up through Hunter Channel and back down to Shearwater. We looked at it. There's no current information for up there, so we got our charts out. We looked and we said, okay, if I was the ocean, I would go this way. So we planned it so that we were going to be going with the current all the way back to Shearwater.
good way behind us,
No.
supposedly.
No.
Didn't work that way.
We had current against us all the way, and it rained a lot, but we didn't have the wind. There was apparently big wind on the outside, so that was the one blessing. And so this is going back, and Alan's still got a whole lot of crap on his boat.
Souvenirs.
That's
He's picked
for
up some
Katrina,
extra
that's it.
stuff as well.
Talk about the piece of wood sculpture.
Yeah.
Alan
That
talked
came
about the piece of wood.
came from North Calvert, yeah. Nice, sort of a pointy shaped piece of wood that was
Where is
just
it now?
asking to be taken. It's in the garden.
In the garden?
I think it could have a more prominent place.
It's in the garden.
Yes, this is our lunch stop. We're trying to hide anywhere we can now. And we finally make it to Shearwater. As we round to the top and go down the 4 miles from Bella Bella to Shearwater were the longest 4 miles I think I've ever done. But we finally made it, and we thought, okay, we will go for dinner, carry on to Rainbow, and set up camp there. But then there was the thought that maybe we can find a room. And we did. And I was going to be happy camping, but it was pretty neat staying, having a hot shower.
Where did you get that hat?
I can't remember.
Alan, here's, this
That's
is
an actual hand.
Alan gives John a hand. It was just lying on the dock, I think. I don't know what it was from. Yeah, so there's, it's a very small little place, but everything you need, and we went for a fabulous dinner. The dinner was just divine. And these guys do this trip every year from Kelowna. So I think they get a good room rate or something to play their 5-piece band, and they were excellent. And then on back to Deb.
Yeah, so the next day we stopped in Bella Bella, and then this was sort of later in the afternoon next. So the ferry leaves about 6 o'clock, so we're looking forward to another 5 hours on the ferry back to Port Hardy next. And this is Morley debriefing with his colleague in archaeology, Elroy, and
Yeah, Elroy's one of the very few Aboriginal professional archaeologists in BC, and he's from Bella Bella, and yeah, very very knowledgeable guy.
Okay. And then this is John writing our last InReach post, and speaking of John, he has a little something that he wants to do next. The finale.
What?
Whoa, you dodged this. Whoa, this is. Whoa,
No, this is all John.
Willie, where are you?
Willie.
I got Willie for me.
There's two of us gonna do this.
Okay.
So when we did the, you know, in the McNaughton group, you saw that we had a little choir, and we sang to general applause. Every night. Every night, 2 or 3 times a day.
The applause was the noise of Jenny's feet going down the beach.
We had so much fun doing that. We thought that we should share with you the fun of doing that, because when we did that,
What do you think about this, Jenny?
the timing is too fast here. We just ran this right by her. One of the things that Alan took on the trip is he took song sheets. He didn't take enough. He only took a couple, but it's a really great idea next time you're going on a longer trip is to download some lyrics off the internet, songs that you know, and take some song sheets.
Okay, next.
So, sorry, Willie. So the song we're going to do is
Virtual
Fire's burning?
Fire's burning.
Fire's burning. Fire's burning. Willie's going to lead us.
I'm gonna.
Oh, we got a crackling fire.
Virtual.
Okay, well, we'll both.
Oh, we gotta have a fire.
We'll just sing it all together. I think everybody knows fire.
Yeah. Who's in guys?
Draw near, in the glowing, come sing and be merry. Fire's burning, draw near, in the glowing, come sing and be merry.
Now, we talked about this, whether it would be possible to do this. This is actually a round.
Yes.
Now, some of you must have figured that we're going to do this. So we need 3 groups.
Or why don't we just do 2?
Do 2 groups. Okay, so there's one group's here and one group's over here.
Okay.
You know when to start?
Halfway?
No,
after
fire's burning.
After
The
fire's
fire's burning. So this group, we're going to stop. We're going to come in and the fire's burning, but we're going to wait until they've gone through their part.
So I'm gonna sing with this group, you guys lead
We'll
that.
sing in this group.
And we'll do it twice through.
Okay.
Fire's burning, draw nearer, in the glowing, come sing
Never
She
lost
never
the
saw it
way,
coming.
another trick. So I want to talk about this.
Oh, you do? Okay. Oh, this is pretty cool. This is great.
So I just said to John, next time he's on a trip, he's not allowed to complain about not being able to sing if he's not. He'll sing anyway, doesn't matter. And he'll never sing on his own as long as Alan and Deborah with him. How many of you were not at the Siska Christmas party to hear the story of my diary? Was everybody there?
Yeah.
No.
Who was not there?
A few.
Well, enough.
It's good.
Somebody else want to tell the story? Anyways.
Was it scandalous?
No.
Yes.
Nothing about being able to navigate, let me tell you. But anyway, so last night of our trip, last night camping, it is great. It was just poor. And you get into your tent, and I thought, oh, I think I've left my diary at the kitchen in a Ziploc bag. I'll get it in the morning, because it was raining so hard. Get up in the morning, it's pitch black, because we
4:30.
We got up early because we had a long paddle. And we were started on our trip, oh, Schweppes. It's on, I know exactly where it is on the log, but it was too far to go back. Morley said, oh, I saw it there.
The night before.
The night before, and I said, and? He said, well, it's not mine. Anyway.
We hadn't packed up yet.
So we get.
It's an archaeological.
Yes. So my friends are very solicitous. We were on the ferry, and they're giving me mileage. I mean, I have everything in here. Like it's like
2 years of.
Yeah, there's 2 trips in here, and it's like what birds you see, what animals you see, the mileage, everything. Anyway, I was sort of upset, but like whatever. And
Yeah, that's how I remember it.
It's like my
and
wrinkles
as Deb said, after the ferry, we never saw another kayaker. We saw some sailboat people. We saw Edgar, and then at Hakai in that inside bay, there was some sailboats. But no, not a kayaker, not another camper. And 10 days later, 10 o'clock at night, there's a phone call. It says it's a 604 number from Vancouver. Oh, well, I'll pick it up. And it was a lady from Genoa, Italy, from Germany, and they moved to Genoa. And she and her husband were on a camping trip. And they stopped at our last beach. And she saw a white something sitting below the log on the sand. And she picked it up. And I had my name and phone number in the front. And she said, it looked like your heart was in this. And so when they got back to Vancouver, and they did more trip, they went up to Tweedsmuir National Park and all that, and they got back to Vancouver. And that's why it was 10 days. And she phoned, and their friends mailed it to me. Isn't that amazing? So I actually emailed the wet notes, the Write in the Rain guy. And he said, I love stories like that.
Sure.
Anyways, every page was in perfect shape, even though it was outside a Ziploc bag.
Is it written in pencil?
Mostly in pen. Yeah, it's mostly in pen, and just regular pen.
But pencil would work.
Pencil works too.
Right.
Yeah, so I'm gonna need to. That's it.
That's amazing.
So do people have questions?
Any questions for the group?
What was in the bag on your back deck when you came back?
So in that back deck bag, those big
At the
things.
end.
At the end. Well, I had the group tarp. I had these boots. I don't know, probably ropes and things.
Do you carry the poles and the ropes in that too?
Yeah, the poles would go inside the hull, though. I don't put them in the
Okay.
bag that would poke a hole.
Is that like part of the advanced rescue?
Yeah, yeah, you got that. When we pulled away from McLaughlin Bay on our way, and the pineapple was kind of prominently on top of everything, I remember the other paddlers were like, "Is that a pineapple?" but the catfish guys, we have one of the guys is Henry Grayman, and every year for years now, Henry brings two pineapples, and a lot of chocolate sauce. And I'm telling you, pineapple and chocolate dip, it's fantastic. but it's well worth the hassle.
Alan, did you have any VHF coverage for weather at all?
Yeah, we could get VHF radio, but you know what? They don't really forecast specifically enough to help you out. So Dennis, that's why we were really glad to have Mary looking at, and I think it was Predict Wind, Mary, and I had set up with Mary in advance, well, these are the places we would like to know more about, the crossings and so on, and she followed our trail as we were going, and she gave us.
You did the N-Reach every day.
Yeah, we did
So
that.
I knew where you were.
Messaging, and it was really good. Yeah, this is my.
Yeah, and Mary went beyond. She did a trip with her girlfriends to the wine country in the Okanagan. You can imagine wine in the evening. And she texted us, whatever you do. Every night
garbled sometimes.
every night between 7 and 8 o'clock at night. And it would be like, 7:45 and Big Sister would say, she has an email, she hasn't sent us anything yet. But every day, even when she'd been drinking.
That was useful.
Yeah, it was good.
Any other comments or questions?
Did you have your food, what do you call them, your food
Bear barrels?
Yeah, bear barrels.
Bear barrel. You had one per kayak, or you had?
I carried two.
Oh, you
And
carried
I had
two.
two, and you guys
And
had
there's no problem getting two of those in your kayak?
Oh, no.
Buy the right kayak.
Yeah.
Telqua, high volume, just slips in like a dream.
There's limited kayaks that go
Tesla.
too.
Tesla's good too, yeah.
You pretty well need a bear barrel for every week and a half.
A week.
Oh,
Yeah.
Good to have.
yeah. Well, more secure.
Well, it's a lot easier than cash.
Per person.
Do you want to tell them about the tear in the tarp?
Oh, yeah. So the tarp that we had there, which is a mech super tarp kind of thing, and has lots of attachment points, supposed to be really strong, but we were on snipe, I think, yeah, and it was just gusty, and it just ripped.
Wasn't that strong?
No, we didn't think so. And it just kind of ripped around this attachment point. So, I think we took it down at the time, and then we kind of, tied it around that, and we used it afterwards to kind of make sure that we had the coverage and all. We were kind of ticked that this, super tarp had died out on us there. But good news, took it back to Mac, they gave me a new one. Trouble is, it is same tarp,
Yeah.
Maybe not as super as they'd like you to think. Yeah, good old Mac, they just say, oh yeah, shouldn't do that, here, take another one. So it was good to have. It's like 5 meters square, kind of big tarp.
Better than those blue tarps we used to take.
We used to take those really nasty ones.
On the Brooks one, it just got ripped right away.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And if you have a chance, take an archaeologist with you. I was there 20 years ago, didn't get nearly as much out of the trip as having Morley along. It's a good thing. Yeah.
$2,500 a day.
Except you have to be prepared for, like, if the group's going this way, you suddenly notice Morley's going, like he's caught the scent of something, He's,
Squirrel.
It's very distractible. But it is a very rich area. And it's great that it's, this is a conservancy, like Hakai Conservancy, with the Healthsick and BC and Canada, I guess, have agreed to preserve this. There's nothing going on now, really. It's, it's just a pristine area.
How much was the ferry to wheel your kayak on?
Anybody remember?
It's $20 more for your kayak.
Okay.
So foot passenger plus $20.
Yes. So, no,
Do you have to reserve when you're taking your kayaks?
Yes.
Or like a group of kayaks?
Yeah.
You probably
Because you're
should.
taking up car space, right?
Yeah, there's a space they use. You saw it there up in the corner. They try and put you, so. But they like to know about it.
And they said they would only let us know in the week before if there'd be a room for us to go on the kayak rack. So we were pretty much prepared to take our wheels, and Jenny kept them for us for the time, which was great.
You don't need wheels. Somebody said earlier you don't need wheels. Like we've traveled there, no wheel.
But it's
that
nice
means
to have them.
you're carrying everything. It's a pain. It's nice to have the wheels, and you just leave most of your stuff in your kayak.
Yeah, and if Jenny hadn't cached them for us at her place, we would have just found a place in the bush somewhere there to stash them away, and they would have been fine, I'm sure.
Because they told us we didn't have that much time to get from the ferry building onto the boat, so.
It was 14 or 15 kayaks, and counting our 6. We thought, oh my gosh, it's gonna be like a zoo. And we saw the 2 guys the first night. We didn't camp where they were. And that was it
Don't know where the rest of them went,
for
yeah.
18
Disappeared.
nights.
And then they had an oil spill up there, didn't they?
They did, right at the entrance to Gale
Gale
Passage.
yeah.
And so it went into that area that Morley was showing had such a lot. And you said those things aren't active, but the Aboriginal people in that area use that.
Well, they dig clams in there still.
That's
Dig
clams.
Yeah, in certain beaches.
Yeah.
So it did affect their fishery.
Oh, yeah.
If you go, Gale Passage is unique in that it floods this way.
Yeah.
So you have to, you're staying, we're in the middle there, and then you have to leave on the ebb.
Very cool area. There's another passage, like when we went up, we took another passage closer to Bella Bella, I think.
Yeah.
So there's 2 or 3 of these passages through the islands. Gale Passage is definitely the richest of the bunch.
Alan, was it easy to find water?
You know, we thought we'd have a problem with water, that's why I picked up that skunky looking water there. And maybe, but Edgar showed up and he had some extra water on his sailboat, right? So we're happy to have that. On the Goose Group, not much water. And what you see is sort of like that, which we could have filtered and used, boiled up and stuff. But once we were off the Goose Group and McMullins, which are similarly kind of out there, in the other islands, no problem. Is it, what's the name of the island? It's not Hurricane. The first one we came to.
Spitfire?
Spitfire.
Oh,
Spitfire
right.
Island has a real creek. I mean, it still doesn't look wonderful, the water, but it's running, and it pretty much runs all the time. And then on Calvert, we found water.
We got it from the lodge, the
Oh,
fishing
yeah.
guys.
The
gave
fishing guys gave us water, and the Hakai
Bench.
Institute, we filled up, and there was water as well.
Morley and I
Also
had,
rained
yeah,
a lot.
Morley and I had a bit more of a problem with water because we left our 2 new water bags below the high tide line. I was sure they were safe. He wanted to be right, so he didn't say anything. And they floated off.
I moved some of them.
Yeah.
And we searched for them the next morning for
Yeah.
15, 20 minutes and they were
They
nowhere.
were gone, full, and they just floated off.
No one mailed them back to you?
She didn't have her name
No,
there.
somebody got themselves some nice new water bags.
Yeah.
And if you tour the same region but go on the inland side, which is probably not as interesting, but it's a whole different thing with fjords and what have you, there's no problem. There's tons of water
Yes.
on that side.
When we left though, we had 8 days water, so like I had 20, 25, 26 liters, and I think everybody had pretty much the same. It's a big weight in the
For
boat.
one day.
Yeah, you need to carry the water. But you notice that the distances were not great, as Jenny mentioned, for the most part. That last paddle was a bit of a slog, but otherwise, 8 to 10 miles, and wait for the weather. We had the time, and it's well worth doing. So once you're up there, just stay safe, and it's on our coast. This is within reach for all of us.
We have heard of a number of kayakers that couldn't even get to the Goose Group because of wind.
Waves.
So, we had to wait a day, but really, we were very fortunate. But we had our weather days. And then that crossback across Queens, it's like
And-
glass the whole way, which is very unusual. So,
And for my thought, in terms of how nice things looked, I thought the McMullins and the other mooks there, McNaughtons, were actually nicer than the Goose Group. The Goose Group is kind of cool because it is getting way out there, but I was a little disappointed in the scenery in that for it. No, by comparison, I mean it was still wonderful, but if you had to go out there and you missed the Goose Group, it'd still be more than worthwhile.
So we have the GPS coordinates for all these places. That Serpent place, guys remember that? I mean, it's
That's
special.
beautiful.
It's just hidden away. It's like a little
It's-
paradise.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're going, let us know. Thank you very much.